An interesting little immigration statistic has been popping up on the internet again recently. One showing that out of 321 Palestinian refugees that were allowed to settle in Denmark, the majority either went to jail or became some form of criminal or became dependent upon the state for social welfare. This, of course, is a rather damning condemnation of immigration at large, even if the sample group here is a fairly small portion of people, 321 individuals. And this factoid has been debunked several times now by progressive sources, but is it actually untrue? Is it actually misleading? Well, no. Not according to the Danish state, anyways. And seeing as this has been popping up back online again, and since I do read Danish, I figured we'd go over it. So, this comes from the Foreign Affairs and Integration Ministry of Denmark, where they received a question as to whether or not the government could account for the fate of the 321 Palestinians that received a stay, so asylum, in Denmark in 1992 after a special permission was granted to them. So, this requires a little bit of pre-explanation. In the 1990s, Europe didn't really understand much, if anything indeed, about immigration. We viewed everyone beyond our borders as basically just Europeans with a different skin color, and therefore anyone and everyone could easily integrate. It wouldn't even require any real effort, really. And so when 320 Palestinians arrived in Denmark and were refused their initial asylum request, but then went on to occupy a church for 5 months, well, the Danish populace went, oh, these poor innocent people, these starving victims of war, we simply must change the law to allow them to stay. And this was also caused by a signing campaign of Danish priests. Priests much like this individual right here. And I use the term priest with very large quotation marks there, as political activist with a different name is probably more correct. 600 Danish priests signed a petition for the Danish government to allow these 321 refugees to stay because, I mean, after all, if they were willing to live in a church for half a year, sleeping on the floor, etc., these were desperate refugees. They were the ones seeking a home, salvation from war and predation. Surely, if Denmark embraced them, then they would embrace Denmark in turn, right? At least that's how we thought back then. Reality turns out to have been somewhat harsher than that. As out of the 321, 321, was it? 321, yes. 204 of them have received either fines or gone to jail one way or another. That's a pretty bad statistic right there. So 38 received, oh god, what's the English term for ubetinget fängsel? That's when you go to jail, no questions. The judge is like, no, whatever you did, it's really, really serious. You're going to jail right now. No pleading, no bargaining. 33 received betinget fängsel, which is where they go like, okay, you don't have to go to jail, but we'll keep an eye on you. If you do anything else wrong during that period, it's straight off to the slammer. And 133 received various fines, but these are all fines above $150, so 1,500 odd Danish kroners, and they are not speeding tickets. They specifically here overträdelser av färdselsloven ingår icke i statistiken. So they are not counting traffic fines. These are all pretty serious fines right here. As, by and large, in Western countries like this, if you commit a crime the first time around, even if it's somewhat serious, you'll usually be left off with a fine. Because we don't really want to jail people unless it's something really serious. So the fact that 204 in total have either gone straight to jail, been threatened with jail, or had heavy fines laid upon them is very, very, very serious. Or, also, This also only counts them once if they've committed multiple offenses as well. So this can't be like one guy committing 204 crimes. These are individuals out of those 321. Okay, that already looks pretty gosh darn bad, doesn't it? Okay, so let's look at the crime statistics in Denmark in general, right? Incarcerated by ethnic origin in Denmark from 2023. Open prisons are 71% Danish, so you might now wonder, what is an open prison? Well, in American terms, it is a minimum security prison, although it's an even more minimum security prison. To put it like this, can you spot the prison on this picture? Can you spot the correctional facility? Because you are looking right at it. This is the prison. This is Kragshovd Fängsel. Kragshov Jail. This is a prison. This is a prison. No, there aren't any walls. There are minimal guards, and the people are kept in by, at most, a fence, if even that, a literal hedgerow on this side here. That's it. And yes, they do have their own little play yard there for families and visiting children. This is an open prison. The majority of people in open prisons are Danish, which means that there's basically no chance of them trying to escape. They're in there for very minor crimes, or the government, the judicial system more correctly, has simply gone, okay, you are clearly a person who simply fell on really shit terms. We want to reintegrate you rather than punish you. In closed prisons, there's 50% Danish. House arrests, there's 54% Danish. And in Copenhagen prison, the big one, there's 33. So immigrants then make up in total 44.3% of the incarcerated population of Denmark, whereas they make up about 10% of the total population, with another 3.41% of descendants. So somehow 13% make up 50%. It is weird how often that statistic seems to just hammer itself home yet again. And as for the closed prisons in Denmark, the maximum security ones, well, they look like this. This is a Danish prison. A Danish prison. And to be fair, I'm Norwegian. I can't cast any rocks here. If anything, our prisons are even more lenient, with, again, like this being the rooms. To most people, this is a vacation. Indeed, like Scandinavian prisons have become famous amongst various bands of Eastern European criminals, for example, who just steal shit as basically a vacation. So what they'll do is they'll break into a house or a shop or whatever, and they'll get whatever they can. They'll bring it out and they'll ship it out of the country, either literally via the mail services or via a courier truck that shows up and drives the goods over the border, right? And if they get caught, so what? They go in front of a court system, they can walk free most of that time. In fact, most of them simply just skip the country, and those who don't or are arrested are kept there as a flight risk. Well, they spend 6 months in what they view as a fucking hotel, with free food and free lodging for 6 months. It's literally a vacation to them. Like this, if you're living in Eastern Europe, this is pretty sweet. But okay then, what about the beneficiaries of the state? Well, we go down here. So these are the numbers for the people who became in some way dependent upon the state or received state benefits, with the largest number being förtidspension, which is when you go off with your pension before you're supposed to. Now, to be fair, the pension age in Denmark is 70, which is pretty damn high. It is, I think, the highest in Europe, in fact, so there's quite a lot of people who take their pension before they must take their pension, or when they're allowed to take the full part of it. But as you can see also here, a fair few have also taken all various other benefits as well, with the total number then being, as you can see, the varying years here, with the number of variations being things like unemployment checks, for example. But again, the majority of them have gone on benefits. And those who haven't gone on benefits, well, they've broken in and stolen shit. So, yeah, not good, not very good at all. And again, to be fair, this is a specific group of people, those 321 people. But here's the thing. The entire argument for why they should be allowed in the country to begin with was that they were clearly desperate, which is why they occupied the church for half a year. Surely somebody willing to do that is genuinely in need, right? These must be the genuine refugees, the people fleeing hardship who have no choice and are actually seeking a new home, right? If even they will be majoritively criminals or otherwise dependent upon the state, the entire argument for immigration basically collapses on its face, because it means that the amount of immigrants who are actually able to integrate into Western society, into Scandinavian society in this case, is tiny. Is a small grouping out of the total. You are looking at something like 30%, maybe. And if you take into consideration taking more out of the system than they give in, you're looking at an even smaller percentage than that. In essence, if we were to have actually decent immigration to fulfill the ideas of taking in the people who genuinely want to be here, we'd have to cut immigration in Europe down to maybe a quarter? And even that is a bit of an optimistic interpretation, really. So yeah. This is a fairly damning statistic, even more so than even the overall numbers, which yet again, don't exactly look very good when you have a tiny, 10-13% of the population committing 44.3% of the crimes. And again, closed prisons, so the most serious crimes, 21%. Immigrants commit serious crimes at twice the rate at which they commit less serious crimes. So, what can we take away from this? Well, exactly the argument that many on the right have now been using this data to say, namely that immigration seems to be a hopeless numbers game. If Denmark couldn't integrate 300 people, what hope does anyone have of integrating hundreds of thousands or millions if 320 of the genuinely starving, the downtrodden, and the dispossessed still cannot find it within their hearts to actually embrace the country that saves them? What fucking hope is there for any of this system? Yeah. Immigration. It is going to be remembered as one of the great mistakes in our history books. Entire chapters will be written on how Europe and the West's view of the world, of everyone being equal, of culture basically just being a costume, was an enormous, unbelievable mistake that brought the Western world to the fucking brink of ruin. Oh well, I say the brink. We're not over it yet, but we might still be approaching at breakneck speed, so, you know, I'm being optimistic. Until next time, I've been Arch. Thank you all very much for watching, and I do hope to see you all again soon. Have a good day.